As leaders of Baltimore's faith communities, we have followed with increasing concern the unfolding events surrounding the tragic and untimely death of Freddie Gray. We appeal to the members of our faith communities and to all citizens of goodwill to remain calm and to express their anger and their frustration in peaceful and constructive ways, allowing the various investigations now underway to proceed so that all of us will soon have the answers we seek. What happened in Baltimore really provided an opportunity for the church, Big C, to have one of its finest hours. Many clergy members, many pastors, many members of local congregations were involved in the peaceful protests. Some of them were organized by pastors. Pastors played a big role the night of the worst rioting on April 27th. There was a time when 150 to 200 pastors of all denominations and interfaith, Muslims were in there too, walked down the street to quell some of the violence.
St. Philip's Lutheran Church and Faith Lutheran Church are the closest Lutheran churches to the senior citizen complex that burnt down. But Pastor Gould had already made the survey. All of our churches were intact. And he suggested at that time that everything was really under control, but that we were having a prayer vigil at Zion Lutheran, which is, the Lutheran church is right across the street from City Hall. And that after we had the prayer vigil and a meeting there, a strategic planning meeting, then we would walk across the street and then have a prayer vigil at City Hall as well, which is what we did. And then we've had subsequent meetings as well. And in fact, we have another meeting tomorrow morning. So that we still have to address the issue. You know, what is the church and how is the church going to be more responsive?
Whenever we see a male murdered, a child abused, a number of things going wrong in our community, we feel it. We feel it in our heart. We grieve for the parents, we grieve for all of our communities, and we grieve for our city. The Freddie Gray murder was just something that was very horrific. What we're trying to do now is keep peace and keep calm. And the only way that we can keep peace and keep calm is to let the church be an open door where both sides can come in and voice their opinions, voice their concerns, share stories, and then better tell us how we can advocate for them. Because we don't know how to advocate for them if we don't ask. Part of the problem is the community itself has been abandoned because of the lack of jobs, because of the lack of education and skills. It's poverty-stricken. There are signs of hopelessness, but still, this church, Faith Church, is a sign, is a beacon of hope, where we invite people to come in, we share what we have, we share our resources. Now, we're a small congregation. We are a very small urban congregation, but we are good stewards with our time, our possessions, and all of our skills. So, as you can see, we have the Maryland Food Pantry Ministry out, the team out. They come out, they unload trucks. They get things prepared for our third Saturday food pantry giveaway.
I'm a Baltimore native, so I was very aware of the racial inequality of the city. And I had always heard from pastors, from community leaders, from young people that I've talked to and networked with, that this is a serious problem. The issues with police and communities comprised mostly of people of color, this is a serious problem. And someday it will explode. I serve in an area that's mostly white, in a city that's mostly black, and a lot of communities that are populated mostly by black folk don't have the same resources that we do. This is a very well-off neighborhood, great schools, great restaurants, very safe. So this is Riverside Pool, and up until the early 60s, all pools and parks of Baltimore were segregated. There were efforts to integrate the pool, and they were met very violently. by police and other folks. The NAACP eventually coordinated an effort, I believe in 1963, might be in 64, to stage a sit-in in order to do some civil disobedience and get arrested in order to bring attention to the issue. The pools were soon desegregated after that, and in part, of course, by the passing of the Civil Rights Act that helped. But this park, part of the reason why I pointed this out is there's a deep legacy of racism in this city, and it still exists today.
I went to a mass meeting at the Empowerment Temple, which is a big African-American congregation. Their pastor had been instrumental in planning some of the peaceful protests. At that meeting, there were about 300 pastors. There were imams, there were rabbis, all asking the question, what can we as faith leaders do to be helpful in this situation? So yes, the first answer is they got stronger. The other answer is, there's always another side, right? That this situation also laid bare some of the deep divisions that we have in the city. I mean, we have black clergy that doesn't like other black clergy, and then there is us mainliners. People don't even talk to us. We are totally irrelevant. You know, the mayor doesn't call us when she wants to hear from the faith community. And so it showed again that we also still have a lot of work to do to be truly colleagues and to be truly brothers and sisters in the faith.
So I've preached extensively about the issues since it first happened. First talking about the difference between the Good Shepherd and the hired hand. In talking about the history of Baltimore, how Jesus is the Good Shepherd who leads the people, but leads the people in justice, whereas the hired hand, who has run Baltimore for so long, is more concerned about funding for hotels and casinos and stadiums and things that don't necessarily help the people of Baltimore who can't afford otherwise. And how, when led by Jesus' voice, we know to seek justice, we know to live gracefully, we know to point out when people are being violated and oppressed. And then the Sunday after the uprising and the state's attorney's announcement, I preached again on the need for our congregation to be fully engaged in racial injustice. We had dialogued about it before, we had talked about it in the wake of Trayvon Martin, in the wake of Ferguson, things that are going on, but we just simply can't stand idly by anymore and just have these conversations when it's convenient. Now is a very important time for us to come together and to acknowledge what's going on. Now is the time to come to the table and to do our part to fight against racial injustice.
The gospel and the sacraments. The minute you start there, it's easy to relate on the same equal ground to everybody, and everybody gets that. You know, over time, some get it faster than others, but over time. But if you as the leader, as the rostered pastor or the deacon or whatever you want to call it, wherever your position in your calling may be, that's where you have to start. And now you're on a level playing ground. And now the issues are the same. They're exactly the same. And you can start to sort them out. And like I said, my police officers, there is no disparity, you know, there between, you know, it's if you look at one form of reporting, they would probably want to say that, you know, this half of the congregation is against this half of the congregation because these are policemen and these aren't. That's not the case. That's never going to be the case in a Christian church. Why? Because of word and sacrament. Because that's where we start. That's where we finish.